So here we go. The karts are released onto the circuit. It's the Rotax Senior pre-final 15 laps of incredible racing. And this is the grid for the seniors. In pole position, Christopher Drayspring and Josh White alongside. Row 2, Gary Donnelly and Nicholas Scholl with Jack McCarthy and Rinus van Countau on the third row. Fourth row, Kay Van Berlo and Tom Gamble. On the fifth row, Jonathan Hoggard and Alex in 275. Sixth row is Berke Besler and Filippo Laghi. Seventh row, Glenn Van Parry and Luc Valence. On the eighth row, we have Jessica Bachmann and Felix Kotic. Row 9 is Adrian Renadin and Denis Mavlanov. Row 10 is Noah Ruvers and Daniel Makacek. 11th row, Nicholas Dashato and Josh Skelton. Row 12, Thomas Drouet and Oliver Rasmussen. And on the 13th row is David Ramey and Ed Brand. Expect to see him working his way through as well. Nicholas Szabo and Ido Cohen on the 14th row. Then we're into those that had to do the second chance heat. On 15th row is Joel De Puch, who won that second chance heat, and Ruud Beidendijk, who fought hard all the way through. 16th row, Tom Croydon, who also fought hard in that one to make up some positions he lost early on, and Baptiste Moulin. 17th and final row, Mikhail Stupinski and Stephanie Levescont. So that is our 34 starters in this pre-final for the seniors here. Round 2 of the Rotax Max Euro Challenge here at the Sette Laghi circuit in Castelletto. Somebody's just gone firing down the line as they were on the back straight, so they obviously just found themselves ever so slightly out of position there, but they're now slowing themselves down, getting themselves settled into position, ready to start this 15-lap race. The red and black kart 214 there of Christopher Drayspring obviously sat there in pole position with Josh White in 221 alongside him. But keep an eye out for Nicholas Scholl and Gary Donnelly behind. Many people have been tipping them for the victories in this race, but is Christopher Drayspring going to keep yesterday's performance going? Absolutely brilliant to see. We've got a few that had an exclusion yesterday. That means they find themselves a few rows back, and they're going to be fighting very, very hard to get themselves through this pack. Coming down the straight towards the last two corners, you can see how slowly they're being forced to go, getting themselves in the two rows and in their grid positions. A little bit of tapping of each other. You can see the odd head suddenly looking back when they're a bit frustrated. They've maybe been tapped a bit too hard. As they come round to the final corner, they're in the corridors, they're in their orders. Nobody wants to jump start this one. They're onto the start-finish straight. Are the lights going to go out? Are the starters happy? They are indeed out, and off they go, and Christopher Drayspring has that inside line. Nicholas Scholl, 216, tried to get over, but could not find a gap in the traffic to get himself towards the inside, and we've got a pile up of a few karts that have all found themselves a long way back at the moment. Or 218, Jack McCarthy, he was hung out to dry as they went through turn number 4. We'll have to keep an eye out who's lost out, but I think we had about 4 or 5 karts involved in corner 1 mayhem there, and they've all got themselves going, so I don't think anybody is actually out. One of them is 209 and 212. So that's Luc Valence was involved in that. But Christopher Drayspring is now just stretching his legs ever so slightly at the front. We've seen this before, so don't expect that to last for very long. He's going to be closed back in as well. And in second position, we've got the 266 kart of Gary Donnelly. As I say, he's a tip from some people. He's up into that second position. Josh White down to third at this moment. Glenn Van Parry fourth. Nicholas Scholl in fifth. He tried so hard to find a gap towards the inside, but couldn't quite find it. 226. Jessica Bachmann up 9 places into sixth. I know that there was a lot of people saying that Jess is going to do brilliantly here. Well, she certainly started off fantastically well, making up all those spots already. Going through Restaurant Corner for the second time. Christopher Drayspring just desperately trying to put as much air between him and the rest as he can. And the good news for him is Gary Donnelly is having to defend like Billy-O from Josh White. And in fact, Josh White has dived up the inside and he's made that move. So up into second goes Josh White. And I thought for a second that the 206 of Glenn Van Parry, who himself has made up 9 positions to get up into there and is now knocking on the door to try and get up even further. But at the moment, Gary Donnelly is still sat there in that third position, but it's not a very lonely third position because Glenn Van Parry is glued to the back of him with Nicholas Scholl and Jess Bachmann just glued to the back of them. It's an absolute chain as we see a few coming making moves a little bit further down the grid, right in front of my commentary box. A little bit of contact, but no one went spinning off. It's just a major challenge was forced then. But Christopher Drayspring through the right-hander of turn number 9, still in that lead. It was 3/4 of a second the lead he had over the line last time, but it's now Josh White that's there. And in fact, we've now got Nicholas Scholes moved himself up into 3rd position. So Gary Donnelly's now down to 4th. He was 2nd previously. He's just been shuffled ever so slightly at the moment, but he's got a reasonable gap before he gets to Jess Bachman, now up to 5th position. Glenn Van Paris finds himself down in 6th now. So there's a lot of shuffling been going on at the back of the grid there. 259 Cottage has done brilliantly as well, up 9 positions. Jack McCarthy in 8th. Rinus van Counthout in 9th. So still struggling with that chassis, I believe, at the moment, which is a real shame to see. Drouet up to 10th position as we now see the leaders coming back towards us, and that lead really has evaporated, and I'm sure Christopher Drayspring can feel that. He can sense that his front row rival Josh White is back on terms with him now as they go through the left-hander of turn number 10, and they'll come through to complete their 4th lap in his 15-lap race. We're not even at 3rd race distance yet, and so much has happened already. And they need to be aware that Nicholas Scholl, the championship leader, the championship dominator this year so far in the Winter Cup and the round 1 in Genk, is now sat there in 3rd, trying to just edge away from Gary Donnelly. Gary Donnelly's not really letting him go, though, is he? So he can't relax. Jess Bachman sat there in the 226 car in 5th. 6th is Glenn Van Paris, Cottage, Jack McCarthy, Rinus van Counthout, and Drouet still sat there. Ed Brand is up to 12th position. He's made up 14 spots already. He said that he was looking forward to it and felt that he could do. It was a couple of accidents yesterday that excluded him from 2 of his heats, but he did so well in another one that he's still able to get straight through to the pre-final. And making hay while the sun is, as you can now see, shining. But Christopher Drayspring comes through to complete his 5th lap with, frankly, that lead evaporated down to 0.186 now. So Josh White is on the case again as they go through turn 3. The S's, the right, the left, then another left before a right to take them onto this long start-finish straight that they want to get the speed on the straight as early as they possibly can. Otherwise, they're a sitting duck by the time they get down to turn 6 and turn 7. Here they come into turn 7, the restaurant corner. This is the slowest corner on the circuit. The chance for the best chance for any kind of overtakes is down there. But these 2 hairpins, we've also seen a lot of action there as well. But Josh White wasn't quite positioned to be able to make a move at this stage. We did have another change. 6th was Cottage, got past Glenn Van Paris, but 3rd position now has changed. And I've been told, but no, it hasn't. For the lead, it has. It's the leader's change, and it's Josh White has got through past Christopher Drayspring. So I was thrown some duff information in my ear, which threw me for a second then, because it's Drayspring that's lost that lead to Josh White. You could see he was lining that up for a second, and Nicholas Scholl has now already closed right onto the back of Christopher Drayspring, as Josh White is now, and look at that challenge for the 2nd position. And Nicholas Scholl is indeed up to 2nd. We said you can't discount him. He was only on the 2nd row, so he wasn't out of contention by any stretch. He's just so used this year to being right at the front. Well, guess what? He's working his way back towards it now. We're into the point scoring positions. He just took it nice and steady in the heats and the qualifying over the last couple of days. He is not taking it easy now. He's up to 2nd. Next target, Josh White, but Josh White is desperately trying to pull as far away as he can. Gary Donnelly sat there in 4th position. Jess Bachman is then right there with them in that 226 car. It's closed right onto the back of the 266 car of Gary Donnelly as they disappear down the back straight again. And Ed Brand is up to 11th position now in a fairly lonely race at this stage, so he's going to want to get in contact with the group in front of him. But look at this. Nicholas Scholl may have got up into 2nd, but Christopher Drayspring is still there. But in fact, Christopher Drayspring is now under growing pressure from Gary Donnelly. And all the while, this whole group, that because they're not trying to make moves necessarily at this stage, they are managing to reel in our leader, Josh White, as they come through to complete their 8th lap. 7 laps remaining, so we're over half race distance now. And it is Josh White still just about leading from Nicholas Scholl, Christopher Drayspring, Gary Donnelly, Jessica Bachman, Glenn Van Paris, Cottage now up into 7th, as we say. Jack McCarthy in 8th is stepping up to the seniors this year after winning the juniors. but he's got Rinus van Cantout right there putting pressure on him as they head down towards turn number 6 again. And Josh White, that lead may be sort of disappearing, but he's not under pressure just yet, so he's just got to try and stroke it round the corners as quick as he can. He doesn't need to go defensive yet, but Nicholas Scholl is not intending to give him very long where he can take any kind of breath. He's going to put the pressure on as quick as possible, and he's taking Christopher Drayspring with him. Pole sitter sat there in 3rd position, still within striking distance. Just behind him, Gary Donnelly, who'd got himself up the front in the early stages of this race. Through turn 1, the right kink of turn 2, then the S's of turn 3. This whole complex is vital to get absolutely right. Flow it round these few corners because they're then going on to the back straight right now, and they need to have that momentum all the way down there. Otherwise, as I say, they're absolute sitting ducks through this turn 6 and turn 7, the restaurant corner. You can see how much Nicholas Scholl closes right in on Josh White, but Josh White is just leaving his car in the right places. That means that there is not the slightest bit of daylight at this stage. He's not enabling any kind of move to be thrown. In fact, for a second then, I thought that Nicholas Scholl was the one putting a bit under pressure from Christopher Drayspring, but not quite just yet. But I would say those two are closer than 1st and 2nd places. 10 laps completed. 2/3 of the race has now been done. Through goes Josh White, still in that lead. Everybody is sort of keeping the same positions at this stage. Ed Brand's got himself up onto the back of the 223 car of Thomas Drouet. So going down the back straight, Ed Brand is indeed lining him up for a move onto turn 6. And is he going to make that move? He has. So Ed Brand moves up yet another position as he's fighting from towards the rear. So he's now up into the top 10. Great move there. And Jack McCarthy defending from Rinus van Cantout. Rinus just, almost as if that car is now coming to him. It's very challenging what he's got. He's got a brand new chassis, and it is not as good as his old one, which I know is frustrating for everybody. And Christopher Drayspring still looking to apply as much pressure in that 3rd position onto Nicholas Scholl as he can, which is quite a relief at this stage for Josh White, because every now and again it means that he just gets a moment to take a breath because he's not having to defend from Nicholas Scholl. But such is the way in this kart racing, it doesn't last for long, because suddenly it's 1st and 2nd that are bumper to bumper. As we head down to Restaurant Corner for the 12th time in this 15-lap race. It is still Josh White from Nicholas Scholl, Christopher Drayspring. Just behind them is Gary Donnelly. Jessica Backman is still right on the tail of Gary Donnelly. Not quite in a position to make a challenge, but look at this. We are now starting to see a few defensive lines, I think, as they exited that last hairpin turn number 10. It looked like both Josh White and Nicholas Scholl went ever so slightly defensive. Not excessively, but just moved a little bit offline to make sure there wasn't a chance. As they come through turn number 3, it is still Josh White. Now, again, he's just managing to edge through. He seems to have the edge through this first part of the lap because he always manages to pull a little bit of a gap over Nicholas Scholl. And we've just seen 220 has just been shuffled down in a bit of a moment over here, although he might be getting lapped, I'm not sure. From that first lap incident, first corner incident. Look at that as they go through turn number 9, heading towards turn 10. Nicholas Scholl is under growing pressure from Christopher Drayspring. And Gary Donnelly's wondering whether he can close in on this. Look at this 2nd and 3rd absolutely joined together. They're going to come through to complete their 13th lap. They're on their penultimate lap now. Just 2 more tours to go. And Josh White is thinking, please, 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 you two behind me, get involved in your own spat and leave me alone. Let me disappear off into the distance at the front. But I don't think it's going to last for long. Ed Brand is now right on the tail of this battle between Rinus van Cantout and Jack McCarthy, our junior champion from last year. Ed Brand doing a monumental job here, working his way through the grid, giving himself the best chance come final. How high can he get himself as we look and watch them going round the restaurant corner? And in fact, Rinus van Cantout is now alongside and he's made the move past Jack McCarthy. So I think Rinus knew that Ed Brand was coming and Rinus van Cantout has moved himself up into 8th position. But that's not over. Look at that, Jack McCarthy looking to the outside. Ed Brand up the inside of Jack McCarthy. And Ed Brand's now going to try and see if he can make a move past Rinus van Cantout, including up the front on the last lap now. It's Josh White comfortably there, but Nicholas Scholl is having nothing comfortable at the moment. Look at this, a little bit of contact was there. Christopher Drakespring possibly just tapped ever so slightly as they got on the brakes for turn 3, the S's. And that is enabling the 4th position, Gary Donnelly, to close in on these 2 in front of him, and all the while Josh White disappear off into the distance. And Rinus van Counthout has indeed made up that position. Ed Brand, Jack McCarthy shuffle back a couple as we watch this now on the final stages, turn 9. Josh White comfortably in the lead now. Nicholas Scholl still holding on to that 2nd position from Christopher Drakespring. Gary Donnelly just behind. Jessica Backman just out of shot at the moment behind them as they come into the last couple of corners. Here comes Josh White from 2nd on the grid. He's going to take the victory in the pre-final. Great performance by him. And Nicholas Scholl just held on to that 2nd spot, and I think that Christopher Drakespring may have missed the flag for a second there because he's just made a slight bit of contact with the back of Nicholas Scholl's car to make the move after the flag, so he finishes in 3rd position with Gary Donnelly 4th. What a fantastic fight and a great victory for Josh White. Nicholas Scholl in 2nd, Christopher Drakespring, Gary Donnelly, Jessica Backman, Glenn Van Parry, Cottage in 7th. 8th in the end was Ed Brand. He managed to sneak past Rinus van Counthout. What a performance. 18 places he made up. 10 places made up by Jessica Backman, so some outstanding performances there. Rinus van Counthout in 9th. And rounding out your top 10 was last year's junior champion, Jack McCarthy.